All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Giant show for you guys today. So we have a TYT exclusive, not a big deal. It's trending on Facebook now. Not a big deal. I haven't said a word. So we'll get to that in 1 second. The so-called liberal media goes after Bernie Sanders again. We'll get to that in a second. But stay around for all the Donald Trump against Fox News stuff. The tweets that people are sending against Megyn Kelly. The way that Fox News has embarrassed themselves. And then an awesome lie by Ted Cruz. I say awesome. Okay? So we will unravel all that for you guys today, as we do every day. Okay? And then a woman thinks she's a cat. Is that legitimate, or is she what we used to call in the old days crazy? Okay. We will also unravel that for you. Okay. We've got cat fights. We've got cat women. We've got everything on this show. Go. A TYT exclusive, Jordan Chariton does it again. Our field reporter, reporting for TYT Politics, talked to Susan Sarandon. This is now trending all over online. She said that Donald Trump reminds her of a drunk uncle at a wedding, and that the real problem is that he has made hatred and racism normal. He's normalized it. Luckily, he has no specific idea what he's talking about. But she was kind to Republicans overall, not necessarily what you'd expect from Susan Sarandon, who is a very strong liberal. But as a liberal, of course, you're open-hearted and open-minded. And she said there are very sane Republicans out there, and they're embarrassed by what's going on right now. If you want to watch all the different interview parts with Susan Sarandon, you can catch it on TYT Politics. We'll have a link below. But now I want to show you one part of the interview, because we wanted to really get at what it is that about Bernie Sanders that she finds so appealing. Now, after we show you our interview with her, just a part of it, right? Then I want to show you an interview she did on CNN Politics, and I want you to see if you can tell the difference. Okay, so here's Jordan talking to Susan Sarandon.
What stood out to you about Senator Sanders, and what made you emotional tonight?
I feel this. It's just a miracle that we've gotten a candidate that can get this far without getting money from Goldman Sachs and the Koch brothers and chumming up with Wall Street. And I don't think it's ever going to happen again if this guy doesn't get in, because the system is rigged, and I don't think it can continue this way. And there's so much cynicism about, I talk to so many people who say, well, obviously he's the best guy, but it'll never happen because, it's just what he wants to do is just impossible. And what he wants to do is not impossible. There are ideas that FDR had that worked, and we've lost our way. And he's saying, let's take responsibility, and we can do it. And let's, bust up Wall Street. And there will be a redistribution of wealth, but it's gone the other way. And now it's time to give our kids an education. I'm very moved by it.
If we want the best educated workforce in the world, we have to make educational opportunities available.
He has hit a chord with people, and they're very emotional. And now it's just a question of getting his platform out there. He's done very well on the debates, and people are starting to understand what he stands for. And I think that, it's a lot of young people that are too young to be cynical.
So that addresses two main points. Hey, what is it about Bernie Sanders that's got you all fired up? And she explains, look, there's a corrupt system. This seems like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to overturn that system, because so many people are excited about Bernie Sanders. Otherwise, we go back to the same old system, which is going to bring you no change and is empower the very, very rich and very powerful and taking power away from the middle class and Americans. You heard it for yourself. And then she addresses the second point, which is electability. Well, she says, well, if not now, when, basically? We've got all this momentum, and we need you to realize that this is your opportunity to take it. And obviously, as we've told you in the polling in the past, young Americans agree. People under the age of 29 in Iowa, for example, support Bernie Sanders overwhelmingly. About 3/4 of them are for Bernie Sanders, only 14% for Hillary Clinton. So that's substance. Now, we turn to CNN, where she is going to be interviewed by the mainstream media. Let's see if we can notice a difference.
They supported him when everyone said he couldn't get elected, and they're all over Bernie. They love him.
Interesting. So some people would say, you know what? Do you know what, Ms. Sarandon? You're a feminist icon. Hillary Clinton is running as a feminist icon. So why aren't you supporting her?
Well, Bernie Sanders consistently has represented everything that I'm interested in, that I care about. He wants change. He doesn't want business as usual.
Bernie Sanders, he says he's a socialist. He admitted that he would have to raise taxes to accomplish his goals. Those are two things that many Americans would take pause, like the socialist label. Do you think people will really vote for a guy who's
everything that he's talking about? Everything that he's talking about is just completely directed from FDR. So I don't know if you call FDR a socialist.
The critics would say, you know, he wants to give Americans handouts, single payer. He wants everybody to have health insurance, free college tuition for everybody, and those things just aren't possible.
Do they say that about all of Europe? Do they say that in all of Europe?
Some critics do say that about Europe.
Yeah, but they're very happy. Why shouldn't we have health care? I mean, why is that something that we should be ashamed of getting? That's not a handout when you pay taxes and you work very hard.
Some countries within Europe, their economies aren't so great.
Yeah, but we got broke going to war, right? The gap between the rich and the poor has gotten so huge, where the few people at the very top, it's like 0.5%, have more than, I think, 50-some% of the property in this country and the wealth in this country. That's redistribution of wealth and going the other way. That's what we should be talking about.
Here's how I can summarize CNN's attitude in that interview. Like, oh, please, Bernie Sanders. So every single question was like, oh, but come on. First of all, he's not a woman, and you're a woman, and Hillary Clinton's a woman, so why don't you vote for the woman? Sophisticated question. But look, that's actually the least offensive question. I get it. And Susan Sarandon says, well, he agrees with my policies more, so that's why I'm going in that direction. And then the rest of the questions are nothing but loathsome. Right? He's a socialist, and he wants to raise taxes. And most Americans don't agree with that. Wait. Where did you get that from? No. Most Americans in large TV studios don't agree with that. But in reality, if you ask them, hey, would you like to raise taxes on the rich? They say, yes. The polling is very clear on that. So don't go around lying about what Americans think because you're rich and everyone you know at CNN is rich, and so you assume that they don't like Bernie Sanders' policies. In fact, in Iowa, among Democratic voters, socialism polls better than capitalism, which is stunning. Yes, I know, but it's a new day in America where we're sick of the excess of capitalism. Maybe not the core of capitalism, but we're sick of crony capitalism and the corruption that has taken over. So when she dismissively says, oh, Susan Sarandon, right, of course. But really, I mean, you're backing a socialist who wants to raise taxes, and everybody in the mainstream media agrees that's unacceptable because our taxes would go up. And then she goes, critics would go on to say that Bernie Sanders is just doing nothing but handouts. Now, wait a minute. When the Republicans come on your air, or people that support Republicans, you ask them the question, well, critics would say that you all supported handouts to the tune of $700 billion to the bankers. And if you talk about what the Fed gave the bankers, that's $7 trillion. Well, you all supported handouts. All the Wall Street guys that the Republicans support, all they want is handouts. Isn't it funny how CNN never asked that question? Hey, wait a minute, Jeb Bush, you've got a program that gives billions of dollars to the rich in the form of tax cuts. Marco Rubio, you got a plan that doubles that. You're giving away billions. And in fact, over the span of 10 years, if these programs were successful, trillions of dollars extra in the form of tax cuts to the rich. You know what that is? It's a handout. But I don't see you scrunching your face on CNN when you talk to Republicans. Oh, handout. Oh, Europe. Every single piece of the framing is Bernie Sanders and progressives are clearly, obviously wrong, even though I have no polling on that. In fact, do you know that they did the town hall CNN did the other day? On that same day, they had their own poll showing Bernie Sanders beating Hillary Clinton by 8 points. We covered it live here on the program. They never showed their own poll. They kept showing the Fox poll showing Hillary Clinton winning. Why on God's green earth would you do that? That's because the mainstream, the establishment, can't stand Bernie Sanders. Why? Because they have a sense he would bring real change. Now, if you want to do a real interview, you would ask her why why she supports him, and get into the details of why she supports him, as opposed to someone like Trump. Now, that's what we did, and you can watch that on TYT Politics if you care about actual news. If you want to get someone who squinches their face and says, yeah, progressives, even though on the polling the Americans agree with you on almost every single issue, I'm going to squint like this and go, socialist, raise taxes. No, the Republicans are always right. That is my assumption. And the worst thing is, I'm not saying the Republicans are right. I'm neutral, CNN. I'm the most trusted name in news. Now, I will frame every single question in favor of Republicans and against Bernie Sanders. Thank you for being so neutral. Yeah, I'm surprised anyone goes on these stations anymore to deal with this crap. Okay, you want to get real news, you come right here to TYT. I guess that's why we're beating CNN all over the internet. Good luck with that crap. Okay. I think I was fairly clear on that. We can move on. Jordan, great job, man. I love having a reporter in the field. How many times I asked you guys, how great would it be to have a reporter in the field? We're in the field, and all of a sudden, boom, 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 boom. One story after another after another. Finally, we're asking the questions. Okay, now, I ain't done my damn sight yet on this Bernie Sanders issue. Hey, Jesus, get ready. Get Django Unchained ready just in case. I don't know if I'm going to get Unchained. Well, that's the thing. You never know, right? Okay. I am told that there's a liberal media, and that the liberal media have been supporting Democrats and progressives and liberals for all this time. Really, who's the liberal media? CNN, nothing but disdain. Every time they talk about Bernie Sanders, socialists going to raise my taxes. We're all rich here. We don't want you to raise our taxes. Now, I've shown you example after example of that. If you want to go to our YouTube channel, watch it, okay? CNN, the Clinton News Network. You watch that, okay? Now, I've shown even MSNBC does it. Fox News certainly does it. Even the Associated Press from time to time does it. Now, so who is it? Who's the liberal media? Well, the newspapers, of course. New York Times, that liberal media who told us, Iraq's got weapons, weapons of mass destruction, nuclear weapons, you got to attack Iraq right away. That's the liberal media. No, wait. There's got to be one. Washington Post, they're the liberal media. These are the guys who broke Watergate, right? They got Nixon to resign. Washington Post, liberal media. Oh, good, their editorial board just came out with an editorial to talk about one of the candidates. Oh, it's Bernie Sanders. Perfect. Since they're the liberal media, they're obviously going to endorse Bernie Sanders, right? I mean, that's what I get told by the mainstream media all the time, how they're so liberal as they support one corporate position after another, right? So let's go to the headline of this editorial and find out. Headline is, quote, Bernie Sanders' fiction-filled campaign. Oh, that's interesting. It turns out there is no liberal media. Washington Post hates Bernie Sanders. What happened to the fucking liberal media? Okay, let's give you the details of the op-ed. This is not one person writing an editorial at the Washington Post. This is the Washington Post editorial board. This is the opinion of the Washington Post as an organization. Quote, Senator Bernie Sanders is leading in New Hampshire and within striking distance in Iowa, in large part because he's playing the role of uncorrupted anti-establishment crusader. But Mr. Sanders is not a brave truth teller. He is a politician selling his own brand of fiction to a slice of the country that eagerly wants to buy it. Okay, what are you talking about? This guy didn't come out of the woods out of nowhere like Donald Trump, who wasn't in politics, who has had positions all over the board. I'm pro-choice, I'm pro-life, I'm this, I'm that. I mean, the hypocrisy of Donald Trump is on the record. It's very, very clear. Bernie Sanders does not have that record, so it's hard for you to lie about it. His record has been enormously consistent. Why do you think he caught on fire? Everybody's so sick of the fakeness, right? The fakeness that you guys in the mainstream media represent. The fakeness of Washington and New York. So Bernie Sanders comes and catches on fire because you can't fake a 40-year progressive record. He's on the record over and over again. You know who told us he's the most progressive guy in the Senate? You guys did. As you did it with disdain oozing from your mouth. The most progressive senator. The most liberal senator. And he's got the voting record that shows, yes, in fact, he was the most progressive senator. That's why he's not lying. He's telling you exactly what he would do and what he has done for 40 years. But you called him a liar anyway because you can't stand him because you're the establishment. You're not liberal media. Don't you get it? All the media is owned by corporations. Corporations are gigantic and enormously rich and powerful. You think they want change? What would we change? We change them. They don't want that change. You think they're bothered by Donald Trump or Ted Cruz? They aren't half as bothered. They aren't 1% as bothered by those guys as they are by Bernie Sanders, because they get a sense he might actually change things. He might change the people in power. Who's in power now? The mainstream media. They're scared to death of this guy. I've got more from the op-ed. They say Mr. Sanders' success so far does not show that the country is ready for a political revolution. It merely proves that many progressives like being told everything they want to hear. Okay, let's pause here to get a good belly laugh on this. So now let me get this right. He is succeeding in the polling. He's clearly winning in New Hampshire, and now it appears that he's tied or leading in Iowa. So your conclusion on that is that he is not successful. It is not a political revolution, even though this is a guy you told us had no chance of winning. That's what you've been saying for all these years. No chance of winning. All of a sudden, he's winning. And now you say, no, it still doesn't count. It still doesn't count. It's not a political revolution, and it doesn't prove anything. No, that is exactly what polling proves. It proves that progressives like his message, and they took a senator that you said had no chance of winning and gave him a chance of winning. See, that's exactly what it proves. So to say that it's not resonating is wishful thinking on your part because you're scared to death that it might be resonating. So now let's get into more specifics. They say Mr. Sanders' story continues with fantastical claims about how he would make the European social model work in the United States. He admits that he would have to raise taxes on the middle class in order to pay for his universal Medicare for all health care plan, and he promises massive savings on health care costs that would translate into generous benefits of ordinary people, putting them well ahead on net. But he does not adequately explain where those massive savings would come from. Once again, totally and utterly untrue. He says, look, he explained it in the town hall event the other day. They wrote this op-ed after the town hall event. He says, okay, look, first of all, most of the tax increases are going to the very, very rich, to the 1/10 of 1%. Now, if you want to talk about specifically the issue of health care, if you're going to do single payer, what you need to do is, yes, you need to raise taxes, including on middle-class Americans, because you need everybody involved in that system. But you're going to get twice as much savings if you go to single payer. Now, how do you know that? You know that from what you dismissively call the European social model. Yeah, but the Europeans have done it, and they've proven it, and it turns out there are tremendous savings. So even if you give $5,000 more in taxes, as an example, you get back $10,000 in savings. Now, that's not fantastical. It's something that country after country has done. And you know where they rank in healthcare? Above us, not below us. I'm not even talking about costs. I'm talking about delivery of quality healthcare. You know where we rank in the world? Number 37. And these guys say, oh, you think you're going to do better than number 37? By doing models that have proven to work and have much better results than the U.S.? Fantastical. In other words, whatever you do, please don't tax us. Don't tax the rich. Please don't tax us. Now, we'll pretend to care about the tax on the middle class. Actually, we know you're saving money for the middle class. But what we really care about is the people running this corporation who actually would pay more in taxes, and they really, really don't want to do that. How do you like that from the liberal media? All right, one more specific in the article for you. It's not an article. It's the opinion of the Washington Post. Here's a reality check, they say. Wall Street has already undergone a round of reform, significantly reducing the risks big banks pose to the financial system. Oh, I see, it's fixed. How do you like this liberal media telling you, oh, we already reformed the banks. It's nothing to look at. Move along. Wait a minute. Can they still gamble with investor money? Did we reinstate Glass-Steagall? Oh, no, we didn't. They can still gamble with investor money. Is there still out-of-control gambling on Wall Street? Provable by every expert in the field. Don't, we fixed it already. Just stop meddling. Leave Wall Street alone. Liberal media. Okay, on that same topic, the evolution and structure of the world economy, not mere corporate deck stacking, explain many of the big economic challenges the country still faces. I love that quote. It's not the corporations. Don't touch our beloved corporations. That is not the problem. Corporate debt stacking is not the problem. The problem is your world economy. I mean, what does that mean? Washington Post is supposed to give us facts and information. What does that mean? The this evolution and structure of the world economy. How does that lead to the economic collapse that we saw in 2008? It's not the structure of the world economy. It was the structure of, for example, ratings agencies that are incentivized to say, oh, you're going to pay me money. I'll give you a AAA rating even though you didn't deserve it. You see, that system is rigged. Bernie Sanders, one of the many proposals he has is, let's unrig it. If they're going to give a rating to a bank or to a specific product that they have, you know what? Maybe they should be fair and neutral so that consumers are not betrayed, so that you protect American citizens instead of the banks you want to protect. Outrageous. No. It's just the world economy. Look away from all the corporate wrongdoing, all the wrongdoing of Wall Street. But the thing that drives me crazy, okay, fine, Washington Post is massively conservative, totally pro-establishment, and that's why they can't stand Bernie Sanders. But then they turn around and say, these guys are liberal media. That's a joke, man. It is complete and utter propaganda. There is no liberal media. Are there facets of the media that have a progressive perspective? Yes, The Nation, us, many other parts of the media that are like that. Is the mainstream media wholly corporate-owned, obsessed with profits, soaking in the money that they get from all of the politicians? Where do you think the money in politics goes? It goes to TV ads, it goes to newspaper ads, it goes to radio ads. They're bathing in the corruption. You think they're liberals? No, they're the exact opposite. They are the protectors of the establishment. That when they tell you don't listen because it's the liberal media, that's a joke. So finally, you got my sense of it. Let me give you Bernie Sanders' sense. When asked about this Washington Post editorial, he said, people are telling us, whether it's the Washington Post editorial board or anybody else, our ideas are too ambitious, can't happen, too bold. Really? Well, here's something which is really bold. In the last 30 years, there's been a massive transfer of wealth from the middle class and working families of this country. The middle class has become poorer, and trillions of dollars have been transferred to the top 0.1%. Where was the Washington Post to express concern that the middle class was shrinking? Where was your op-eds about the fantastical ideas that the Republicans had when they said, oh, no, let's give all the tax cuts to the rich and to the corporations, and then it'll trickle down on your heads. And when it turns out that wasn't the case at all, where was your opinions about how they were lying and deceiving you? Waiting, liberal media, I'm still waiting. I can't hear you. As they extracted trillions of dollars of wealth from the middle class and gave it to the very top, partly you guys, there were no editorials. Not a peep was heard. When Bernie Sanders says, hey, maybe we should actually look out for the middle class, how dare he? Fantastical, outrageous. No, just trust Wall Street. Finally, he couldn't help but throw one more jibe in there on foreign policy. And the Washington Post editorial board, if you think their domestic policy is conservative, you should get a load of their foreign policy. There is an award that the Washington Post hasn't loved in the last couple of decades. So Sanders says about the Post, check out where all the geniuses on the editorial page were with regard to the invasion of Iraq. Okay, I believe we have a saying for that. It's called the people's elbow. Oh, yeah, you geniuses on the editorial board. Hey, where were you on Iraq? Oh, right. You wanted to go into Iraq. Don't believe the hype. The mainstream media is nowhere near liberal. They're corporate-owned, and they work for the establishment. So if they tell you all these lies about Bernie Sanders, don't believe it for a second. Check out the actual facts, his actual record, and look at logic and reason, not these biased guys who are obsessed with protecting their own ass. Okay. I got to take a break. Woo! Okay, now when we come back, you want to talk about lies? Let's go to Donald Trump. Okay, I got his lies. I got the vicious sexist attacks. But my favorite is Fox News kissing his ass to get him back. It's wonderfully pathetic. Come watch it with me when we come back. All right, back on the Young Turks. Got some tweets for you guys, and Anna's going to roar for about 45 minutes, and then we're going to have the debate show. It's going to be fantastic. Will Trump show up? Everybody's ready. Okay, here we go. Bernie Sanders writes in, don't judge Cruz by his deeds, but those gay dudes, judge away. Right? It's funny how those, yes, you're right, they should be judged by their deeds. Okay, no more donations says, I've met genuine religious people who help people. Ted Cruz ain't one of them by a long shot. Hashtag Chariton. Very, very true. I often talk about different examples. One is the Guatemalan family that I know, Guatemalan family. Yeah. And they came over a long time ago. They worked super hard. They're not rich by a long shot. They clean houses. That's what they do.
They sound like terrorists and rapists. We should get rid of them.
Right. They're actual Christians, though. And so whenever they have time for a vacation, they go back to Guatemala for 2 weeks or a month at a time to exclusively help the rich, feed the rich. I'm sorry. That's funny. I thought they were in the mainstream media for a second. Help the poor and feed the poor. That's how they spend their vacations. Okay. That's what a real Christian does. Okay. Now, of course, there's Christians of all different stripes, but a decent Christian does that. Okay, Mark Floria is member number 1871, and Deidre Orions is member number 1614. We had a really good post game yesterday. What was it?
Snow days. But then it ventured off into different discussions about like childhood and things that we did.
And all the wrong things we did in our childhood.
Yeah.
Okay, in order to watch that, tytnetwork.com/join. Okay? All right, Casper, what's up?
All right. A little update on the Flint, Michigan water crisis. Flint, Michigan has no plans to change its lead pipes, which of course is contributing to the lead water anytime soon. In fact, it's so costly and it would take so much time to change that part of the infrastructure that the governor has decided to go in a different direction. So let me give you the details on that. Now, this is crazy because, look, it's expensive, but the lead levels are so high that people cannot drink that water. So people can't bathe in it, they can't drink in it. It's incredibly unsafe, and it does lead to a lot of health concerns. Now, Michigan Governor Rick Snyder said that replacing the pipes is not the city's short-term plans. Instead, officials say they are focused on supplying bottled water and filters to the city's affected residents, many of whom are below the poverty line, who have no clean water for activities like drinking, bathing, and cooking. Now, it might be limited. It might not even be limited to Flint. There are other areas of Michigan that are also impacted by this based on water tests that have just been done. So they found out that cities including Grand Rapids, Detroit, Saginaw, and Holland are also experiencing high levels of lead in their water.
Right. I like this quote by Snyder. He said, in terms of short term, it's a lot of work to take out pipes.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, yeah, that's true. You might want to put some thought into it, though. It's not a lot of work to poison the kids. It's a lot of work to clean up the pipes. What a pain in the ass. Now, look, to be fair to him, he goes on to say to redo all the infrastructure, that's a whole planning process. Right. You might want to engage in some sort of process to make sure we get going. Now, is replacing the pipes absolutely the right thing to do? I'm not saying that either. It costs $1.5 billion. So they wanted to save $1 to $2 million in the beginning. Well played. Well played.
It's so stupid.
And by the way, Anna, sorry, I thought these Republicans were great businessmen. Governor Snyder was a venture capitalist. Like, I know how to get things done, save money. You see, you save $1 or $2 million, and it costs you $1.5 billion. What happened?
So there are two things at play. Not only are these lead pipes problematic, but the water itself is corrosive. So the combination of the two is leading to this problem. But we live in the wealthiest country in the world and also the most productive country in the world. And we now have a state that's suffering from no drinking water. What's going on in this country? I don't care if it costs more than $1 billion. This should be considered a state of emergency. And if the federal government needs to step in and take care of this, they should step in and take care of this.
Yeah, but look, there's got to be consequences for the people who did it.
Of course.
And so they do this all the time, and then they tell us we don't have money. As I've told you before, Rick Snyder gives away $1.7 billion in tax cuts to corporations inside Michigan every single year. He says, I don't have the $1.5 billion for the pipes. Well, if you stop giving away $1.7 billion every single year in corporate tax cuts, well, then you might have it, right? So, but to me, one of the most grating parts of this story is that they didn't trust people, and that's what drives me crazy. the establishment, in this case, Republican governor, the government overall, people say, no, the water's orange. The water's, and our kids are sick, we're nauseous, we're dizzy, we're having no. What would people know? The elites know. No. We know. You don't know. No, we'll study it for a year while your kids are drinking poisonous orange water. But no, people don't know anything. But it's emblematic. It's only a symbol. But it's what we feel throughout the country. So when people say, hey, we've got these issues, our wages are stagnant. No, the economy's sound. The stock market's doing great. In other words, I'm rich. I have a lot of my money in the stock market. I'm in better and better shape. So when you tell me you have stagnant wages, that's your problem, not my problem. I don't even believe you, right? The mainstream media constantly with no, it's fine. What are people complaining about? Why all these radicals like Bernie Sanders running around?
Look, I know that this is a little off topic, but that Washington Post piece by their editorial board was such a ridiculous piece. I mean, especially the part where they talk about, but there's robust financial regulation. What are you talking about? Can you elaborate on that? Just a little bit. Just a little bit. They didn't mention one specific thing in terms of regulating the banking system, breaking up the banks. Subprime mortgages are still being doled out by these banks.
Look, I don't know anything about. I know we're all off topic here, but I don't know anything about Jeff Bezos's politics. But let's not forget that the guy who owns the Washington Post is a billionaire. So a billionaire feels a little threatened by Bernie Sanders and is worried that he's going to raise taxes on the middle class. Okay, yeah, I didn't. Tell me more about how that pretty little lies about how the mainstream media is liberal.
All right, let's move on. Earlier this week, there was controversy involving high schoolers in an Arizona school wearing T-shirts that spelled out a racial slur, the N-word. Well, it turns out that members of various NAACP chapters and leaders in the state got together to have a discussion about what to do to combat this. One of those leaders was actually Don Harris, who is the president of the Maricopa NAACP chapter. That's right. That guy right there is the president of the Maricopa County NAACP chapter. Now, that point is relevant when you consider why he's making headlines today. Apparently, the leaders got together to have a discussion about this, and afterwards, understandably, reporters were asking questions. Now, as one reporter was speaking to him, I guess he made an observation, and that observation got him into a little bit of trouble. A reporter, Monique Grego, stopped Harris on his way out of the meeting. "How did this meeting fix anything?" her cameraman asked. "It doesn't fix anything," Harris replied. "We're on a pathway now to making things better." Then she thanked him and moved on to speak to someone else. At that point, Harris turned and spoke to a male reporter. And Harris turned to the New Times reporter and said, "Nice tits," referring to the female reporter that he had just been talking to. Then he said it again. Now, the New York Times was there, and he didn't realize that they caught him on audio saying that she has nice tits, and he got into a little bit of trouble, okay?
Yeah. Okay. At first, I thought he had said it to her, which I suppose would have been ruder, okay?
It would be very, brazen.
Yeah, that'd be Mel Gibson-esque.
Yes.
Hey, sugar tits, right? So, to be fair, he didn't do that. He only said what people are perceiving as a sexist comment behind her back. So that's the classier way to go. Okay, now, I say people are perceiving it as a sexist comment because the context in which you make this comment, I think, matters a lot. If you're with your buddies and your bros and you're sitting in your living room and there's nobody else and you see a girl on TV...
You can be as sexist as you want.
Have at it, Hoss, right? We're not in that living room. You're not saying it in public. But this dude's saying it to a reporter, right?
Yeah.
So we can't have it. I mean, everybody knows that.
Look, I know that you want to give people a pass when they're in the privacy of their own homes or when they're talking to their buddies. A racist or a sexist comment is still a racist or a sexist comment, regardless of where it's said or what context it's said in, right?
No, but okay, so this is really interesting, and a lot of people might disagree here. But I believe the phrase nice tits is not sexist by definition. It 100% depends on the context, okay? So if you are directing it at, again, your buddies are sitting at home, they're watching, what was that old thing where they'd It flashed their breasts. Girls Gone Wild, right? And you go, hey, guys, those are nice tits. Okay, I don't think that's sexist. They showed you the tits so you could look at them and judge them, right? If you're doing it in this context where she's being a reporter and she's trying to do her job, and then you say, no, I'm not going to judge you as a reporter. I'm going to judge you based on your body. Well, then it is sexist.
So, okay, but what I'm trying to make clear is it would be sexist regardless of where that comment is said, right? So even if it's in the privacy of your own home and you're talking to one of your buddies,
and you say it about a reporter.
You see an attractive reporter who happens to be, very curvy, right? And you say, oh, nice tits. Like, that's still sexist because it's taking away from what she's doing. She's just trying to do her job. You see what I'm saying? Like, I get what you're saying about Girls Gone Wild. But here's the thing. There's a way that you phrase things, right? So, for instance, look, men and women think differently. If I see a guy who has a nice body, I don't think to myself, like, yeah, look at that guy's dick, that nice bulge, right? Men and women are just different. But it's a disrespectful and vulgar way of referring to the way someone looks.
I know, but that's why I say if it's in the privacy of your own home, it's not necessarily disrespectful because he's not there to hear it. No one else is there to hear it. So who is being disrespected? No one.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean the comment itself isn't still problematic. You see what I'm saying?
I hear you. Let's do a poll on it. Okay, go to TYT app. Is saying nice tits sexist under all circumstances? Right? So curious what people think.
That's difficult, though, because in the circumstance that you mentioned with Girls Gone Wild, I agree with you. But in the circumstance involving a reporter who's just simply doing her job, she's not scantily clad or anything,
right.
I feel like it definitely detracts from the job that she's trying to do.
Okay, phrase it any way you like, but you know the question
Okay.
we're asking you. So let's do that poll. But to me, look, I don't know if it's sexist under the definition that you've set up. It's a person trying to do their job that has nothing to do with their body. You're sitting alone or with your friends in a room. But I do know, whether it's sexist or not, I'm going to pardon you.
So you're going to pardon him?
No, because
not
he
him.
did it in public and he said it to a reporter, and so that is disrespectful, and everybody hears it, yada, yada. But if you're in your own home and you do that, I think, like, that's not my business, that's your business.
So let me be absolutely clear about where I stand on this issue, because I think some of our members and our audience think that they can't compliment the way I look because they think I'm going to take it the wrong way. Complimenting the way a woman looks is completely okay. Like, it's sweet, it's nice. But statements like nice tits or nice ass or whatever, it's usually not meant to be a compliment. It's usually meant to belittle what the woman is doing for her career, belittle what her skills or her talents are, and focus solely on a body part or a physical appearance, which is why it comes off as very disrespectful. Saying a woman's beautiful or attractive, that's totally fine. I don't get offended by that at all, right?
So this is the part where we totally agree, because if what you're trying to do is sexualize that person in a context where it is not appropriate, right? Now, if you're doing dirty talk in the middle of sex, sexualize away.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
That makes sense, right? But if you're dealing with, let's say, a United States Congresswoman, you don't talk about her body. That's not relevant. That's sexist. Yes. Okay. So she's trying to do her job. If you're Angela Merkel, the leader of Germany, to say, hey, nice calves. I don't know. Okay. Not appropriate, right? So context matters. That's my take on it. But for this guy, it's irrelevant because the context was terrible.
No, the amazing thing is he's the president of the NAACP chapter in Maricopa County. There's a picture of him shaking hands with George Arpaio, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and
Joe Arpaio, sorry.
Joe Arpaio says, "Oh, my old friend Don Harris." I'm like, really? Why is the NAACP leader friends with Arpaio, who's a well-known racist?
Yeah, it's because I don't know. This is all very questionable. Now, I want to give you his response to the reporters who called him out on the nice tits comment. He says, "I'm going to slash my wrists. Better yet, I'm going to throw myself out of a fucking window, except I'm on the first floor." What? I'm one of the best goddamn people in this state.
That's one of the best quotes of all time.
What?
They're like, hey, maybe you shouldn't have said that, right? He said, I'm throwing myself out of the first floor. Okay, wait a minute.
I don't know what he's talking about. I've given up my law practice. I'm down here 6-7 days a week. That's what my commitment is. I support NOW, the women's organization. Goddamn. Are you shitting me? Are you going to write this up? And they did.
Yeah, it turns out they did. Okay. By the way, and I want to go back to the original girls who did the N-word thing. I had said when we first did that story that the asterisk was probably not in the yearbook picture. A lot of you pointed out it was in the yearbook picture, not in that order. Obviously, it was in a different order. So it was probably less premeditated. They probably just got together and was like, oh, look at this. Ha, 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 he.
Yeah.
It still doesn't make it right. And he was ironically fighting against that, right?
I know, it's incredible.
So I don't want you to... Look, Don Harris, for these quotes, should be judged on both ridiculousness and amusement. Okay? But at the same time, my guess is he didn't get to be the head of the NAACP as a white guy in Arizona by doing bad things. He probably had a track record of doing really wonderful things, and that's why they voted him to be the leadership of that, right?
Yes.
Okay, so give the guy his due. But Don, if you didn't want this to be a problem, you shouldn't have said things like, I'm one of the best goddamn people in the state. Who are you, Donald Trump?
I just love like the sense of entitlement he has. It's like, I've done some good work, so now I'm allowed to say whatever the fuck I want, even if it's disrespectful. By the way, just one quick pointer to kind of decipher whether or not something is offensive or sexist or racist or whatever. If you're able to say it in the privacy of your own home, like among your friends, but you can't say it to someone's face, it's probably a little offensive.
Well, that's actually a pretty good rule of thumb. It's like in the issue of the Washington Redskins. If you can't call someone a Redskin to their face, maybe we shouldn't use that title for the team. So, but again, if you're saying it at home, it's not my business. Okay, you do whatever you want at home, but once you go out there in public, you got to watch yourself a little bit.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Oklahoma. Several red states are trying to fight against marriage equality by passing discriminatory laws against gay couples. And one of those laws, or several of those laws actually, are being proposed in Oklahoma. Let me tell you what they are. The first one is known as HB 1598, and it explicitly states that mental health counselors may engage in sexual orientation change efforts with any patient, including those under 18, who are forced into the therapy by their parents. This bill also legalizes the use of aversion therapy. So this is essentially the same type of therapy that's been banned in states like California because, A, it doesn't work, and it's also very traumatizing for kids that have to go through it. If you're an adult, you have to sign some sort of agreement indicating that you know that this type of therapy is not proven to work and that it's disastrous for your psychological state. But again, this is just another effort to kind of attack the LGBT community in Oklahoma.
That's weird because I was told that we're past all this. We've got this solved. Why are gays still complaining when they have all the rights? They have more rights, I hear, than straights. It's weird, though, that in places like Oklahoma, people are allowed to force you into trying to change your very identity.
Right, exactly. And one thing that people are kind of misled about is that there are anti-discrimination laws that vary state by state. And a lot of the red states do not include the LGBT community in those anti-discrimination laws. So you do not have equality in a lot of these red states if you are gay. The Supreme Court ruled that you can get married, but that's about it. Now let me give you more. In regard to aversion therapy, it means any counselor or counseling by a mental health provider that exposes or asks a client or patient to undergo physical pain, such as electroshock therapy or electroconvulsive therapy, touch therapy, pornography exposure, or vomit induction therapy. These are all methods that, by the way, do not work, but it's meant to traumatize this victim who's being forced into taking this type of counseling.
So these fall into two different buckets. One is the bucket where the therapist is also gay, but is pretending not to be gay, and he touches you in different ways so he can get off. And I'm not exaggerating. We've shown the video in past episodes where they'll have the person they're trying to convert from being gay sit on their lap, and they'll rock back and forth with him. They're like, no, it's therapy. It's really therapy. It's fucking gross, okay? So the fact that they take advantage of those, oftentimes kids, right, as they're pretending to turn them straight and sexually assault them in that way, right? It's disgusting.
They prey on them. They prey on these kids.
Exactly. You want to talk about disgusting, though, is the second bucket. Electroshock therapy? Are you kidding me? right? Vomit-inducing things like, oh, they'll show you gay porn. Conveniently, they're also looking at the gay porn, and then they'll make you vomit. What? I can't. So, okay, here, I'll give you a great example. Could you imagine, okay, if a Muslim family in Oklahoma decided, hey, you know what? My daughter or son turned Christian, and that's against my culture. So I'm going to shock them. I'm going to literally do electroshocks on them, zap them, and torture them until they become Muslim again. The scandal we would have.
Yeah.
What would people say about that? They'd be like, oh, the Muslims, we knew it. We knew, look at these barbarians, these savages. Yet Christians here do it to their kids because their kids happen to be gay. And Oklahoma, the state of Oklahoma is like, way to go. We sanction that. Go ahead and torture your own kids to make sure you defeat their own identity and destroy how they view themselves.
How do you as a parent stand to think about your child going through something like this, to torture your own child? I mean, it's ignorance. Honestly, it has everything to do with ignorance. The notion that you could change their sexuality, the notion that these therapies actually work. It's ignorance, right? Coupled with hatred, and it drives me insane. But there's more, okay? This is just one piece of legislation that's been proposed in Oklahoma. There's more. There's House Bill 3044 that would rip away a lifeline that basically allows these kids to go to counselors that are gay-friendly. The bill states that no public school counselor, therapist, social worker, administrator, teacher, or other individual can refer a student under the age of 18 to any individual, organization, or entity if the referral pertains to human sexuality. So that's their way of saying, if you are part of the LGBT community and you are seeking guidance from a counselor who is gay-friendly, we're not going to allow that to happen.
And here's what that means, so in case you're unclear. They say, a student might come in and say, I'm depressed because I'm struggling with identity issues, and I think I'm attracted to guys, and my parents don't approve, and so I'm going on depression. All these different things that are possible. Can I see a therapist who could help me with this? Now, this would make it illegal for the counselors to say, yes, here's a therapist you can see about that. But it is perfectly legal to send them to a therapist who would torture them to try to make sure that they don't stay gay.
Incredible.
I mean, look, this is why they're the American Taliban. This is, they say it about the guys in Oregon. It's true of the legislators in Oklahoma that have signed on to this. They're vanilla ISIS, right? This is a version of ISIS, except you're not torturing foreigners. You're torturing your own kids.
And finally, there's HB 733, forbidding HIV-positive people from getting married. Anyone found to have communicable or infectious diseases will be denied a marriage license. Though neutral on its face, the bill is clearly targeting gays who still have an elevated risk of HIV. By the way, I mean, that piece of legislation doesn't just impact gay people, it impacts everyone.
I guarantee you right now they're going to repeal that.
Yeah, of course.
Because you know who has communicable and infectious diseases? A lot of people in Oklahoma. And they're not all gay. Most of them, overwhelming majority of them, will be straight. And if they actually pass it, enforce it, and then they say, oh, sorry, you got an STD, that's it, you can't get married, people in Oklahoma are going to be pissed.
I mean, do you know how many people, like the vast majority of people in America have herpes? Vast majority of people in America have HPV.
Yeah, when you combine those two, it's
over.
It's not a little majority, it's an overwhelming majority.
Yes.
So you would ban the majority of your citizens in Oklahoma from getting married.
It's just
okay, how's that for irony? The people who say they're pro-marriage, right? Mm-hmm. So they're going to repeal that once they realize it doesn't just... And then, they're going to be like, oh, we meant to discriminate against gay people and torture them. Oh, we didn't mean to discriminate against straight people. And all the things that we say, oh, the sex before marriage. Yeah, straight people can do that. That's fine. No. We meant to hate gay people. Yeah. What happened? I thought you were basing this on the Bible. And the Bible says neither one of them should have sex before marriage and hence shouldn't have an STD. Okay, let's see. Let's see if they wind up being consistent on this. But my guess is once they find out, oops, we just banned 87% of the people in Oklahoma from getting married, they're like, oh, gosh, damn it. We're going to have to change that.
It turns out that you have to think when you're drafting legislation that makes sense. But unfortunately, they don't think at all.